Let's get real for a second. Last night, for the first time in Trump's presidency, the man actually broke ranks with Pete Hegseth. And who's surprised? Don't act shocked when the guy finally distances himself from another war criminal, mainly because, newsflash, Trump wears that label like a bad cologne too. Forget the word games, the I didn't knows, the I wasn't there, the pathetic, maybe in 2 weeks, denial dance. None of that's saving him now. Not this time, not ever. But Trump, king of the word salad, he still believes you can babble, run out the clock, and vanish your problems. Spoiler, he's terrified you'll notice, which is why the guy got caught deleting his own late-night post the second Washington started buzzing about whether he'd finally canned Pete Hegseth. We're wading into all of it. Chaos, backstabbery, and paranoia, the place is running like a broken-down lawnmower. But before we can dissect the panic deletions and epic firing rumors, you've got to understand why Trump posted at all. That's thanks to Mark Kelly, who just yesterday had the spine to say on record exactly what Trump and Hegseth wish you hadn't heard about their illegal orders. If you ever got an unlawful order, Kelly said, you refuse full stop. Sure, run it by the lawyers if there's time. But if your president asks you to do what you know is illegal, your job as an officer is to say no, simple as that. And let's be clear, that isn't some easy split-second call. It dumps the weight of the Constitution on the backs of troops and commanders right up the chain. But that's the gig, you know what's right and what's not, no excuses. Asked point blank if he'd have carried out Trump's boat strike orders, Kelly drew the line. One thing for an initial attack, but this second make sure it's all death, no survivors mess? No way. The administration's legal gobbledygook? It's a knot they tied themselves, and it keeps getting tighter. Weeks ago, I said the real victims are the service members marched right into this ethical minefield. They might only realize years from now that they broke the law for a man who didn't respect them enough to even make the rules clear. It's not fair to them, but it's how this White House works. Led by a president and a secretary of defense who wouldn't know respect for the Constitution, the military, or the country if it hit them with a subpoena. That's where we are. That's who's running things. Let's be brutally honest. Trump keeps throwing our troops under the bus, and calling it leadership doesn't cut it. This isn't just reckless. It's illegal. It's unpatriotic. And it's the kind of betrayal pretending to be tough that only a politician with nothing to lose would try to sell. You know the drill. He speaks nonstop about Democrats hating America and the left tearing down the country. But all the while, he's hammering away at the biggest cities and trashing the same service members he claims to honor. That's Trump's whole political playbook. In both presidencies, MAGA isn't about American greatness. It's all about picking fights with everything good this country stands for. The military? Another punching bag. Trump doesn't just fail to respect the troops, he outright spits on their sacrifice. The truth is, he hates looking at genuine service because it exposes just how little he's ever given back. He wants applause for doing nothing, cosplays a tough guy, and Pete Hegseth is standing right next to him, hoping nobody will notice he's not qualified to run a bake sale, let alone call the shots on defense. Trump drops a statement, Pete panics and launches a bizarre post of his own, desperately trying to save his image, while the president tries badly to delete any evidence as soon as the rumors explode. Pete's latest contribution? Posting cringe about narco-terrorists, spoofing kids' books, looking like he's 6 cans deep on a Sunday night and nowhere close to sober, all while pretending his bravado means a damn thing for national security. Let's level with each other. This isn't mere corruption. It's an embarrassment so deep it scrapes the bottom of the barrel. Hegseth is out here protecting himself any way he can. That's the only game in town. But the big news? Trump's setting Pete up for the classic boot. Panic mode is on. Desperate deletions, frantic spin, bubble building distance. The whole mess played out in real time, and last night made it crystal clear Trump's scrambling, and everyone in Washington knows exactly why. Trump makes futile effort to delete typo trader's rant. Donald Trump futilely tried to delete a Sunday Night Truth Social rant, but his typo fury was captured by various screenshots. The Daily Piece reported, "They're sick are laws that affect our nation," Trump posted, but then quickly deleted his message. On Trump's second attempt at posting, he confused effect and effect instead. going with what the Daily Beast described as the less problematic word impact instead. Trump's edited version finally made it to Truth Social with both ending and the taunt, "Do what has to be done." Trump seemed to be quoting former U.S. Navy Commander Kirk Leupold, who now works as an inspirational speaker as part of a rant against Democrat traitors, the Daily Beast reported last week. Of course, 6 Democratic lawmakers with military and intelligence backgrounds released a video urging current U.S. service members to refuse any orders they deem unlawful, an action that aligns with U.S. military law. Trump called in the seditious 6 and posted that the lawmakers, including former Navy captain and astronaut Senator Mark Kelly, had committed seditious behavior punishable by death. His latest tirade came after another of Trump's Truth Social tantrums in which he used an offensive slur against Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. There's something wrong with that guy. Absolutely, sure. Trump told reporters Sunday on Air Force One as part of a larger meltdown. Yet, Donald Trump is clearly in panic mode, the kind where he can't tell the difference between affect and effect while fantasizing about axing the Department of Education. That's its own mess. And honestly, I can't even go there right now. What matters is this. The White House is in full-blown freakout. Trump sees his MAGA coalition splintering. And at this point, he's not looking for a win. He's looking for a scapegoat. Someone to absorb the blame that's parked squarely on his shoulders. Do I think Hegseth is the first one he fires? I'm not convinced. If anything, Cash Mattel looks like the first domino. The scandals keep piling up tens of millions in taxpayer money burned on private jet joyrides with his alleged girlfriend. Emphasis on alleged, because I'm not trying to get sued. Cash is a walking liability and Trump can't pretend otherwise. But Pete Hegseth, Trump absolutely does not want another investigation dogging him. His MAGA Congress is already exhausted, already signaling they'd happily wrap this term today, and some Republicans are openly threatening to resign. The last thing he wants is to limp through the remainder of this presidency under scrutiny for Pete Hegseth's war crimes. And let's be honest, it's not just Hegseth. Trump's also absorbing the blowback from being exposed yet again as Putin's obedient little puppet. Representative Don Bacon practically said so when he threatened to resign after learning that Trump's own sidekick, Steve Witkoff, a guy who doesn't deserve half the titles he assigns himself, was feeding negotiation intel straight to the Russians. Bacon represents NE2, one of the most important swing districts in the upcoming midterms. And even he said, enough. Trump's online meltdowns are reaching new levels of desperation. The guy launches into a late-night fit on Truth Social, pounds out a post so riddled with typos it would make a 6th grader cringe misspelling there, mixing up effect with affect. Just a total mess. Of course, he smashes delete, but not before everyone and their grandmothers got screenshots of the original. He tries again, swaps out effect for impact, finally spells there right, and hurls the same "do what has to be done" challenge before he rage quits for the night. All of this, by the way, is in service of a rant against Democratic lawmakers, specifically the so-called seditious 6, including Mark Kelly. Their crime? Releasing a public video that reminds U.S. service members they're required by law to disobey any illegal order. Trump's response? Accusing them of treason and declaring their actions punishable by death. If that's not enough, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth jumps in to threaten Kelly with being dragged back into uniform and court-martialed for saying out loud what every honest officer already knows. Trump's not content to stop there. He keeps pounding away at opponents, using slurs, launching wild attacks, and lashing out at anyone who challenges his authority. This is peak freakout mode. The MAGA core is splintering, Republicans are talking resignation, and Trump's not looking for justice. He's hunting for a scapegoat, an easy mark to pin the blame on as the walls close in. At this stage, it's not about winning. It's about survival and redirecting the heat by any means necessary. Let's be honest, Hegseth's behavior ought to make real Republicans just as furious as anyone else. Trump is boxed in now. Does he cling to guys like this and gamble away his House majority, effectively handing Democrats the keys to investigate everything from Hegseth's decisions to the Epstein files? Or does he toss them overboard to save his own hide? From where this looks, he cuts them loose. Trump has never cared about loyalty. He worships survival. Those are the two doors in front of him: purge his own team or watch his own party walk out on him. And the reason the pressure has to stay on is exactly what Seth Moulton just laid out. Yes, Pete Hegseth ordered that second follow-up strike on survivors from the first boat attack, and yes, he absolutely should resign. He should have been gone months ago when he leaked classified information to his family, the kind of thing that would land a junior enlisted soldier in a cell, not a cable hit. This is a man totally unfit to be Secretary of Defense. If these reports are confirmed, the only remaining question is whether we're talking about a reckless official or an outright war criminal, and that's a fight for the lawyers. Asked as a Marine veteran whether he'd obey those orders, Moulton's answer is the one every serious officer knows by heart. No, you refuse. That's the job. Officers up and down the chain are already telling this White House they won't carry out these missions, and some are getting removed for it. That's why the message in that video matters so much. The oath is not to Donald Trump. It's to the Constitution and the laws of this country. The responsibility starts at the top, but it rests on every single person in that chain. And if you zoom out to the long-term damage, it's brutal. The U.S. military is one of the last institutions Americans still mostly trust to do the right thing, even as faith in media, Congress, and big business has cratered. Dragging the armed forces into politicized boat strikes off Venezuela, activating the National Guard in U.S. cities for partisan theater, and turning uniforms into props all chip away at that fragile trust. For veterans who actually wore the uniform, it isn't abstract. It's personal and it's infuriating. Trump has been dragging the military's reputation through the mud for years, and the numbers show it. Trust in the armed forces has fallen sharply since 2016, and a big reason is that the current president treats the military like it's just another blunt instrument to use on his enemies, not a sacred institution that's supposed to stand above his personal vendettas. This is the same guy who mocked John McCain for being captured, sneered at Gold Star families, and then turned around in his second term and picked a Secretary of Defense whose public brand was built on explicitly politicizing the uniform. Trump doesn't see troops as citizens in service. He sees them as props and muscle. Pete Hegseth is the perfect symbol of that problem. Everyone paying attention knows he was never remotely qualified to run the Pentagon. His past management failures and TV shock jock persona are wildly out of step with leading a department that oversees roughly 3 million personnel and trillions in assets. Putting someone like that in charge doesn't just insult professionals in uniform. It broadcasts that political loyalty and on-camera swagger matter more than competence or judgment. That's why the damage here isn't just about one ugly decision or one scandal cycle. It's about long-term harm to one of the few institutions a majority of Americans still say they trust to do the right thing, even as faith in Congress, media, and big business has cratered. When people see the military dragged into partisan stunts, illegal orders, culture war messaging, and Fox-style branding exercises, their confidence in the institution itself starts to erode. For veterans and service members who actually wore the uniform, that isn't an abstract concern. It feels like a deep personal betrayal, and it's exactly why they keep calling for accountability and sustained public pressure.